Welcome everyone to explore this week. We're going to continue looking through the Bible story. If you haven't already read tonight's passage, then please do look it up. So that's just in Matthew's story about Jesus, chapter 27. If you haven't read it, you can pause now and read it and then come back to it, because there are some really important details that we want to look at in that story. Now, as we start this evening, I want us to imagine that we are a Jewish person, let's say living about 2,000 years ago, and we have also been looking at some of the Bible story. Maybe we've been going back over the parts of Genesis where we see this good God who made life. And we know of the fact that humanity turned against God and brought death and curse upon them. As we're walking around the city, we will have two really big reminders of these truths. So maybe we'd see the big temple in the center of Jerusalem, and just know that there's a massive curtain that sits in that temple, and it's like a daily reminder to the Jewish people that we cannot mix with God because of us turning against him, because of the curse that's on us. And that will be one reminder. Maybe every time we go to the temple to do sacrifice and to do prayer, we will be reminded we cannot mix with God because of this curtain. The other thing we might see is, as we're walking around the city, we might go and visit some graves, the places where people are buried, or sometimes we use the phrase tombs, the place where people are buried. And whenever you see those places, again, as a Jewish person, you'd be reminded that this relationship with God, who is life, is broken. There's a curse on humanity. There's death. But maybe as you're walking around the city, you have been thinking about this person, Jesus, you've been hearing about. And there's part of you that's building up hope that this person may well be the person who was going to reverse those curses, who was going to bring blessing. And then we get to the shock, the real shock of the passage that we looked at this evening. Because what we see is Jesus, who was a man who was supposed to be God with us, is now being killed like a criminal. We see Jesus becoming a curse. So I don't know if you noticed that in the details of the story. There's a few really interesting things, but there he is, Jesus being crucified, which is a form of Roman torture. It was reserved for really the worst type of criminals. It was shameful, so it was public. You'd be hung up to like a wooden post, a wooden cross. You'd be put up there with nails through your hands and feet. It would be public, it would be shameful, and you would slowly die as you did this. It was brutal, and that was where we find Jesus. And we think this doesn't look right, this scene, because Jesus was innocent. He was the one who was supposed to bring life, and here he is, cursed. And this picture builds as we read through the story, because we see darkness coming over the land when Jesus is dying, a picture of God's anger. We see Jesus shouting out something. He shouts out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" We see Jesus, the one who had this perfect relationship with God. Now that relationship is broken. It's like a curtain has been put up between him and God. And then, at the end, Jesus gives up his life and dies. And you might think everything is falling apart. Everything that we thought about this person, Jesus, must now be wrong, because he's died and he's faced this curse. But there is something remarkable that happens. I don't know if you noticed it, some really strange details in the second half of this story. Because what we notice is that as Jesus becomes this curse, actually blessings start to come out. So the first thing we notice is we're told that the curtain in that temple was torn from top to bottom. So when Jesus became this curse, no, it wasn't that people could no longer access God, but somehow through Jesus taking this curse, it meant that humanity could come to God. There was no barrier. The other thing that we notice is that it says the tombs of these people were opened. Dead people came back to life. When Jesus died and took this curse, suddenly life came out of it. Blessing. When Jesus dies, both the barrier between us and God, with that temple curtain, and the graves that hold the dead were broken open. So although we see Jesus' death being a curse on the one hand, we also see that Jesus' death brings blessing. And the amazing thing about this part of the story is that Jesus became a curse so that we could become blessed. Life and relationship with God can be achieved because Jesus, as he dies, has reversed this curse by taking it upon himself. Now, I wonder what you think about this scene. There's lots to take in, isn't there? It's moving, it's tragic on the one hand, and yet we see hope and joy and blessing on the other. In this story, Matthew includes two characters, two groups of people who react to this scene of Jesus dying. And I want to think, do you see what they see? So we have the Roman centurion, and as he sees Jesus died, he says, surely this man was the Son of God. Do you see what he sees? There is something about Jesus dying that makes him think Jesus must be the Son of God. I wonder if you see what he sees. And the second group are this group of women. We're told that they're standing there at the distance. They're with Jesus as he dies. All of the rest of Jesus' followers had left him. But this group of women, they followed him. They wanted to be there with him, even to the point where he was shamed and killed. Because they knew something. They saw something. I wonder if you see what they see. Maybe they trusted that Jesus would be the one who'd bring blessing when everyone else thought that those things were over. I wonder what you see. Because it's a remarkable story. It's a moving story. It's an amazing story that God's Son would come and take a curse on behalf of mankind, facing God's anger, separation from God, and death. And he does this to bring life, to bring people back to God. I wonder if you see these things. Because either you're just going to see the sadness of an innocent man being killed, or you're going to see the wonder that is the good news of this Bible story. So that's all I'm going to say, but it's over to you for discussion.